Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
I'm with Mr. Syed Kazem Sajjadpour, the Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran, the head of the Institute for Political and International Studies, which is a think tank of the Ministry of Iran. Mr. Sajjadpour, welcome to ThePrint.
Thank you.
My first question to you is about India-Iran relations. We've had age-old ties, of course. But in the present day today, it seems to me that things are not so good. Would you agree?
No, I think the basic of relationship, the basics and the structure is very good. So it's a very healthy bilateral relationship. There is no structural problem. But of course, like any other relationships, there are issues, ups and downs. But the good thing is that everything is managed and followed in a friendly manner.
So some of these ups and downs that I will refer to and I will ask you about, one of the issues right now that is confronting the Indian government is the question of buying oil from Iran. You know that the Americans have imposed sanctions on any companies that will buy or do any business with Iran. What's your take on this?
I think, of course, it's up. The issue is an Indian issue. As far as it relates to me as a personal observer, I think what the Americans are talking about is a very unjust and very illogical, without base demand from India. First of all, what has Iran done that its oil should not be sold and bought?
Well, you're supposed to have not abided by the contours of the JCPOA, the nuclear agreement between the Western powers and Iran.
This is exactly contrary. At least 15 IEA, that is International Atomic Energy Agency, yes, reports have said that, including the one just a few days ago, that Iran has been abiding to the JCPOA and observed all the commitments. So actually, to be fair, India, I think in Indian culture, fairness is understood well. Fairness suggests that you have to think of the reason. The reason is just domestic politics in the United States.
But what do you say? Suppose the Indians say to you that we cannot buy oil from Iran because the price to pay would be far too high.
I think, first of all, Indians don't talk in the way that you talked about.
I'm a journalist.
And,
so I can afford to say things in black and white.
No, I mean, they would say, for example, before the election, they were saying we have election, so we would decide, on the quality of those issues. But I think this is my personal view that they would manage it. What I'm sure is that the American policy is not just about Iran per se. It is about re-establishing American hegemony, and that means everybody in the international system, any player, should follow whatever the United States is saying. And of course, the era of hegemony has passed, and the hegemony is an impossibility.
So you're saying that if India abides by the American sanctions, it would be abiding by U.S. hegemony.
I'm not talking about what the Indian approach would be, but I think what I'm talking is the other side. The other side wants everybody's submission, including India. Of course, different package, different format, different messaging, different texting.
So what about China? What are the Chinese saying to you? After all, if there are sanctions, the Chinese would also be hit by those sanctions.
Chinese, I think, clearly have managed their way.
In what way?
I don't know the details, but I think they also they are on the record that these sanctions are not just. And these sanctions are not internationally decided sanctions, it's unilateral sanctions, so they are against it.
So how would you explain this difference between India and China?
I think it's too early to say that Indian approach is clear. I think India has not yet abided, so it's very difficult and I think unfair to say we have a dichotomy of China and India's different approaches.
So you would be open to linking Chabahar with Gwadar?
I think we are, as far as I see the pronouncements of the officials who are involved. We are open, of course.
Now, Iran is a key player in Afghanistan and the unfolding sort of great game in Middle Asia. What is your view on the talks between the Americans, the Taliban, and Pakistan?
I think it's a very complicated issue, but as I understand, it is mostly a personal agenda rather than American agenda.
Personal agenda on whose part?
On Trump. Trump is thinking of re-election. He had promised American reduction of forces, withdrawal. Now we are getting close, and then people would ask. And of course, he doesn't have any taste for more military involvement because of his promises, maybe his worldview, and so on and so forth. So he has assigned through his Secretary of State, Zalmi Khalilzad, which he himself also has a personal agenda. In next maybe if...
But you want the Americans to leave, surely?
No. I'm explaining to you the issue of Taliban is a very complicated issue in the American establishment, and you have a type of personal factional politics there.
But how would you've said earlier that Pakistan is playing a very sophisticated game. What does that mean?
Pakistan, I don't know the details of this sophistication, but what I see, Pakistan, of course, has a neighborhood issue with Afghanistan, its neighbor, and a lot of complications. So now it's a very specific juncture in Afghanistan. Of course, Pakistan is responding according to this very complicated context.
But does the Pakistan have control over the Taliban? There are a lot of Taliban factions that live on Pakistani territory.
This is a question you have to ask from Pakistanis.
You're a neighbor of both Pakistan and Afghanistan, and you're a key player.
When you talk with Pakistanis, they have their own narrative of these issues, and I think they don't approve. Let's say that some terrorist actions that have been followed, can be related to those elements close to them. So they look at themselves as victim of also terrorism. So it's this very complicated issue there.
So you have had some, between Iran and Pakistan, there have been some incidents of what we call cross-border terrorism. Has that been sorted out?
You have to keep in mind that Pakistan is our neighbor.
Yes.
And we have a friendly relationship. And as I mentioned about India, we have also a good structural foundation with Pakistan. When you have a good bilateral relationship, you are able to manage issues which come across in a very, let's say, sophisticated way. The issue of cross-boarding, especially during the last couple of months, have been, I think, managed well between our security and military forces and Pakistani ones.
So similarly, would you say then that India and Pakistan should manage these cross-border terrorism incidents?
I know it's more complex, that it's beyond my capacity to really judge, but I wish a better situation in this bilateral relationship that you mentioned.
Last couple of questions, Mr. Sajjadpour. There has been a lot of tension between India and Pakistan. We've had the strikes in Balakot a few months ago. Do you think, does the region feel, and you're a key player, that India and Pakistan should begin talking again?
Of course, this is our wish that the region be calm, peaceful, Actually, we have enough tensions in the region. We don't need any more. So any channel that can calm down the situation, can contain the tensions, of course, is welcome.
And my last question is about the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who has now called for talks with Iran.
Oh God, he has been so fluctuating in his position. And if you remember, a few months ago, President Trump said, we are ready for talk with Iran. Even I think he used unconditional. I'm not sure about the verbatim of his statement. Within 4 hours, Secretary Pompeo came, put 12 conditions. If you read those 12 conditions, it means no talk. It means even the destruction of our political system, which is what they are for. And this issue of negotiation is just a ploy by them, and we defend our land, our country, and our system.
Mr. Sajjadpour, thank you so much for speaking to ThePrint.
Thank you.
Please continue to watch our YouTube channel. It's live and buzzing. And this is Jyoti Malhotra.